If you struggle with information overload, you'll want to read this book, Building a Second Brain by Tiago Forte. Today, I want to talk about what is a second brain, the 3 most common mistakes people make when taking notes, and whether or not this is the right book for you. I've always loved to do deep dives on all sorts of topics, language learning, weightlifting, photography, but even though I was reading books and web forums for hours and hours, I never felt like I could do anything with the information I was learning. I just kind of hoarded ideas into my brain. If I wanted to remember like a photography technique, I would have to go back to my bookshelf to look it up. If I wanted to find information about a weightlifting program, I'd have to go search Reddit for that one specific comment thread. And I know that comment thread is there, even though Reddit's search sucks. People knew me as that guy who knows a lot of random stuff. And when friends asked me to share information about weightlifting or language learning or whatever, I would dump a whole semester's worth of reading assignments on them. Like, hey, here's 3 books. Check out this forum that's like 5 years old and it's got 4,000 posts of people arguing about squatting. So I had all of this knowledge, but it wasn't serving me, and it certainly wasn't serving others. That all changed when I took an online course called Building a Second Brain. The information in that course would eventually be iterated and refined and distilled into the book I'm holding right here. So what the heck is a second brain? A second brain isn't some futuristic technology invented by Elon Musk. Rather, a second brain is an external place to store knowledge. If you have a calendar or a to-do list, you're already using a second brain. By saving information outside of your head, you free up brain space to do more creative thinking. Instead of thinking about all the things you have to do later, or trying to remember when you had that important phone call, you can externalize that information onto your to-do list or onto your calendar. Tiago Forte's book takes this idea a few steps further by asking, what if we took all of the important information we deal with every day and put it in our second brains? What if we had a place to capture all of our notes and ideas and to-dos and projects? That's a second brain. So what is building a second brain? It's a set of frameworks for taking notes and, more importantly, making use of those notes. I've been a senior mentor for the online course version of Building a Second Brain, and I always see people run into 3 common pitfalls when trying to take notes. 1, under or over collecting information. 2, not knowing where to put your notes. And 3, never using those notes again. Building a Second Brain offers a solution for each of these, and it does so using a framework called CODE. CODE is short for capture, organize, distill, and express. And each stage is a step in the creative process. First, you capture inspiration and ideas, organize those ideas in a way that lets you find them in the future, distill those ideas to the most insightful, juicy bits remain, and express your creativity by remixing those ideas and adding your own flair. By understanding this creative process and using the techniques and frameworks from the book, we can start to create a second brain that works for us. The book goes into much more detail about each of these steps, but I wanted to cover a few interesting techniques from each. The first problem is under or over capturing. For those who under capture, Building a Second Brain has a set of easy capture systems. Probably the best way to get started is to start using a notes app on your phone or carry a little pocket journal around. Every time you have an interesting idea or you learn something neat, just jot it down in your notes app. For those of us who over capture, Tiago offers a few mental frameworks. One is to capture only what resonates. School teaches us how to take notes and to take notes when something might be on the test or it might be quizzed later. In the real world, there are no tests to study for. No having to show all of your work that needs to be done completely from memory. You don't have to learn everything there is to know about a subject because in the real world, outside of a class syllabus, that's impossible. Instead of capturing ideas you think you should capture, you should capture ideas that resonate. Ideas that make your heart beat a little faster. Ideas that make you feel excited. It's kind of similar to Marie Kondo's spark joy concept. When I first heard this from Tiago, I thought, this is a little bit woo, I don't know about this. But it's seriously some of the best advice I've ever gotten. When you stop taking notes because you should and start only capturing ideas that you love, your over-capturing problem just kind of dissipates. It goes away. The second common pitfall I see is not knowing where to put your notes. It's tempting to categorize your notes by topic, like in a library. But if you've ever tried doing this without studying for a library science degree, you'll realize how much this doesn't really work. Instead, during the organize step, Tiago suggests a system called PARA. PARA is short for projects, areas, resources, and archives. Each of the 4 letters in PARA get their own folder in your second brain. Instead of organizing by topic, we organize by actionability. Projects are a series of tasks with a goal and a deadline. So if I'm making a YouTube video about the Building a Second Brain book, my book notes will go in my projects folder, not in a note-taking folder. Areas are part of your life that are ongoing, like your health or your family. I have an area called YouTube where I might save quarterly analytics reports. Resources are where you can save information that isn't useful right away, but you might want later. And archives are for everything else. With Para, we solve the problem of not knowing where to put our notes. If you're curious about implementing Para in a link-based note-taking app like Roam or Logseek, I'll be releasing a video on that in the next week or two, so don't forget to subscribe. The third common pitfall for note takers is never using your notes again. Sometimes this gets resolved just by knowing how to organize your notes, but there's two other reasons you might never use your notes. The first reason is that your notes are too long and kind of a slog to read. The D in code stands for distill, and here's where we make our notes useful and easier to use. The goal is to look at a note and iteratively make it more useful for future you, using a framework called progressive summarization. When I took notes on this book, I did a few passes, highlighting key passages on my Kindle, and then taking a look at those highlights and bolding a few of the most interesting ideas. When I went to write the script, instead of staring at pages of book notes, a few key ideas I needed were right there, and I didn't have to spend that much time looking at my notes. Using progressive summarization, the most interesting ideas are highlighted and rise to the top. The other reason you might not use your notes is fear. This is where the E for express comes in. One fear is that we're not good enough. There's so much content out there, and oh my gosh, like, what do I have to say? But the truth is, even in a world overflowing with information, your unique perspective, your ability to curate information, and your ability to present it with your own unique spin is an invaluable service to the world. Knowledge and ideas expressed in different ways are so valuable. You may not reach everyone, but if you reach the right person, then you've done something awesome. Another fear is the fear of doing the work. We think that creative projects need to be this big, heavy lift, that we need to block off hours or weeks to get anything done. With techniques from this book, you'll learn that you can use smaller chunks of time, using a technique called intermediate packets. By working in small chunks of time, you eliminate the fear of needing to sit down for hours. Lastly is the fear of staring at a blank page. If you're staring at a blank page wondering what to write, stop. Dig around in your second brain for interesting ideas, pull them out, and start to rearrange them like Legos. Soon enough, you'll be creating again. On the surface, Building a Second Brain is just a book about taking notes. It can't be that exciting, right? But this is one of those books that I like to call a Trojan horse book. On the outside, it looks like a book about taking better notes. But if you put the book into practice, you'll find yourself changing in ways you didn't expect. When you start capturing information that resonates, it inherently changes the information that you consume. It turns the act of note-taking into an act of learning about yourself. You learn what you like and what resonates with you. And instead of a pile of notes that feels like homework or a slog to work through, you start to build this treasure trove of interesting ideas, cool finds, and fledgling thoughts. The other frameworks like Para and progressive summarization free your brain up to do what it does best, which is be creative. Learning the information in this book marked a major milestone in my life. Building a Second Brain rekindled my curiosity, it rekindled my creativity, and it made me want to share with others. It almost feels ridiculous to say that a few ideas about note-taking changed me, but I'm on a totally different trajectory now than where I was headed before. Since Building a Second Brain, I started writing a blog. I co-created a downloadable product called the Digital Productivity Coach. I started this YouTube channel and so much more, all while working a full-time job and all while having fun doing it. I've been a mentor for the online course 3 times now, and I keep coming back because I get to see students go through the same transformation. Students that started off scared to share start to open up and they start to create these beautiful things. Podcasts, paintings, presentations, you name it. I really hope that having this information available in a cheaper book format can spark that change for many more readers. Should you read this book? Who is this book good for? Are you a college student or an academic? Yes, you should read this book. I seriously wish I had it when I was a student. Are you a knowledge worker, someone who sits behind a computer and answers a lot of emails? Yes, even if you don't go through this crazy transformation I'm talking about, just having your notes in one place will make you so much more efficient at your day job. Are you an alumni of the online course? You've already learned everything in this book. If you want to buy the book as a nice reference guide or a gift, or if you just want to support Tiago, you can do that. But you really don't need to read this book. Are you someone who loves learning, but you're always hopping between different productivity apps, hoping to find the perfect one? Do you feel like you never use the information you're learning about? Then yeah, you should read this book. You're pretty much the target market. Are you someone who has a note-taking system that works for you and a productivity system that you're happy with? If that's the case, then you really don't need to read this book. You can pick it up if you're curious, but if it ain't broke, don't fix it. If you're curious, check out the book, implement the ideas that seem interesting to you, and see what sticks. Good luck on your note-taking journey. See ya.